Hey guys, so today we're going to talk about being a highly sensitive person and what that means. This is just going to be kind of a quick video overview because I recorded a really long one and then I realized I could talk about this for like 3 hours. So I'm going to make this kind of short and sweet. I've been writing on my blog and I've decided I'm going to kind of transfer more into videos instead of writing because I think that people like videos better. So, highly sensitive people, they make up 15 to 20% of the population. And what it means is that our sympathetic nervous system, our fight or flight response is stimulated much faster than other people, the other 80% of the population. So, why is this? Why do we have this? It's because back in the day when we were cavemen and we were, living day-to-day life, things were pretty easy, right? Like, there was not a lot of constant daily stress, but when there was stress, that's when our fight or flight response was triggered, and that's when we decided, do we stay and fight or do we flee and try to get ourselves out of it, right? So people who are highly sensitive, they're more aware of the things going on around them. So it's just that their senses can be stimulated much easier, and it was so that realistically we could escape in situations like that or stay and fight, but we had the timing, we had a little more time to choose what we were going to do. So now how that transfers over though to 2017 society where there is constant stimulation everywhere can be very overwhelming for a highly sensitive person. So it's very important to be aware that you're a highly sensitive person and to take the steps necessary to manage it, because it can be a lot. And you have no idea. You just know that there are things that bother you that don't bother other people and you don't quite understand why. So, for example, me being a highly sensitive person, I will cry at a movie that isn't that sad. Like something, you know what I'm saying? Like everybody else is like, okay, like it's kind of sad, I guess, that stings. And I'm just like, oh my God, I feel so bad for them. So that's one. Two, certain things like maybe concerts or nightclubs or raves. I've never actually been to a rave, but I don't really like. But if it's the super loud music with people everywhere and just it's way too much stimulation for me, I'm like, I can't even breathe, So that's kind of how that works. So those are kind of maybe like some signs that you're a highly sensitive person. So what do we do if we're a highly sensitive person? How do we function in society that doesn't wreak havoc on our life? So a lot of highly sensitive people actually have lowered immune systems, which I had for a long time as a child, because their body's stress response is like, it's just on. You know what I mean? Because that flight or fight is like triggering on much faster than the other 80% of the population. So it's important that we practice both mental and physical health because we need to be able to cope with and manage these sensitivities. So how do we manage? First, mental health. It is important that we practice things that will relax us, to relax our sensory system that's always being triggered. So for me, I really like yoga, reading, baths, anything that smells good, candles, bubble bath things. I'm obsessed with soap. So really just finding the things that use your senses to help relax you and turn off that flight or fight response. So, mindful meditation, some people might write music, some might write poetry, some might journal, some people might enjoy even singing, some people might enjoy making YouTube videos. So whatever it is that really just helps to soothe and calm you, it's important to at least do something once a day, maybe at night before you go to bed, or maybe in the morning, do some yoga. So yes, finding your sensory things that help to relax you. Very important. Number 2, being a highly sensitive person, I don't want to say that all of us are very passive, but it is very common for a highly sensitive person to be passive because they care so much. So being that aggressive and hurting people to get their way isn't as common because they're not usually selfish, they're usually selfless. So And that's not for all of them. So if you're watching this and you're like, I'm a highly sensitive person, but I'm very aggressive, there are lots of other things that can go into this as far as like your childhood and your upbringing and things that you've been through in your life and blah, blah, blah. But most highly sensitive people are passive. And this is something that was actually my New Year's resolution. We all are working on things. No one is perfect. But to go from, so you have aggressive, you have passive, and we want to become assertive. You need to be able to set boundaries. I'm terrible at this one. It's important to be able to set boundaries with people because you will be selfless and you will give and give and give and give. And especially in relationships, it is important because a relationship can become very toxic if you're a highly sensitive person and you're constantly like giving and not asking. So that's something I've been working on, is to ask and be assertive and say, this is what I need, this is not working for me, instead of holding it all inside. So very important, that kind of interpersonal effectiveness, how we interact with people is very important. So okay, moving past that, again, I could go into like 20 million other things to all of these, but I'm just going to lay out a quick overview, and then maybe I'll do another video where I break down into specifics. So in life, things happen to us. There's things we can change and things that we cannot change. So things that we can change are like our emotional regulation, like how we deal with things emotionally. So, you know, something bad might happen to us and we might want to go and have a huge breakdown because we're a highly sensitive person and it's just like way too much for us to deal with. But instead, if we can make good decisions, you know, that mindfulness, that moment between the stimulus and our response, we get to choose how we respond by picking, you know, the way that we're going to respond in that moment between the stimulus and the response. So if something bad happens, I could go and have a highly sensitive person breakdown, or I could choose to go take a bubble bath and just maybe cry for 20 minutes, let it out, let those emotions roll over my head and just let it go. So it's important to practice that as well. Now, the things that we cannot change, that's when we want to get into distress tolerance skills. These are things, how can we reduce the stress that we're dealing with, because we can't change these things. And, you know, those are going to be things like I don't know if you guys are familiar with DBT, but DBT is something that I am very much into and learning and practicing in my daily life and teaching. And, you know, there's lots of DBT workbooks at Barnes & Noble. You can find a bunch of stuff online, and those have a bunch of different skill sets and ideas for us to practice distress tolerance. So there's different skills. There's like the stop skill, which is like stop, take a step back, observe the situation, and proceed mindfully. So like those are the things that we want to practice. So yes, I just think if you are a highly sensitive person, it's very important to be aware. Awareness. I wish I could put it across the screen. Is so important in life for so many reasons. And actually, I think I'm going to do a whole separate video on awareness. But it's important to be aware that you're a highly sensitive person. Be aware of your strengths and your weaknesses. And be able to make changes in your life to strengthen your weaknesses, but also be aware of things that may cause you distress, and then have a plan of how to deal with them. So that's what I would say, being a highly sensitive person. And, you know, just put yourself in situations and do things that, you know, aren't going to stimulate you too much. Prepare and remember, you're special. You're a highly sensitive person. They need us in the world. All right, guys. Gotta go. My friend's here. Talk to you later. Bye.